The Discovery commander Elena Rodriguez pressed her face against the observation window of Europa research station and watched Jupiter's great red spot swirl in the black sky above. The massive gas giant filled half the horizon, its storms raging, with enough power to swallow Earth whole. But Elena wasn't thinking about Jupiter. Her mind was focused on what lay beneath her feet. Hidden under kilometers of ice in Europa's dark ocean dot, the research station had been humanity's most ambitious project yet. Built on the surface of Jupiter's moon, it served as a drilling platform and laboratory for studying the subsurface ocean that scientists believed could harbor life. Elena had spent 3 years of her life getting here, and now she was finally about to discover what secrets Europa had been keeping for billions of years. Dr. Michael Chun burst through the laboratory doors, his usually calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled excitement. The xenobiologist had been studying the latest deep ocean scans for 2 days straight, surviving on coffee and determination. His dark hair was messy, and his lab coat was stained with coffee spills, but his eyes burned with scientific passion. "Elena, you need to see this right now," Michael said, waving a tablet computer in the air. "The sonar readings from Sector 7 are impossible. I've run the analysis 12 times, and I keep getting the same result." Elena turned away from the window and followed Michael to the main laboratory. Dr. Anya Petrov was already there, her blonde hair tied back in a messy ponytail as she stared at multiple computer screens showing complex mathematical equations. The quantum physicist looked up as they approached, her blue eyes wide with confusion and wonder. "Elena, I've been checking Michael's data against known physics," Anya said, pointing to her calculations. "According to these readings, there's something down there that exists in 7 dimensions simultaneously. That's mathematically impossible, according to everything we know about reality." Engineer Tom Mitchell looked up from the equipment he was calibrating near the drilling station. His weathered face showed the experience of 20 years working in space, but even he looked puzzled by what they had found. Tom had built drilling equipment for Mars, the asteroid belt, and 3 different moons, but he had never seen readings like these. "The drilling equipment is giving me headaches too," Tom added, wiping his hands on a rag. "Every time we point the deep scanners at Sector 7, my instruments start acting like they're drunk. Temperature readings that change based on who's looking at them. Pressure measurements that exist in multiple states at once." Elena studied the data Michael handed her. The sonar had detected something massive resting on the ocean floor, approximately 40 kilometers beneath the ice. The object was clearly artificial, with perfect geometric angles and surfaces that reflected sound waves in patterns that defied explanation. But what made Elena's heart race was the size of the thing. According to the scans, it was at least 2 kilometers long and shaped like nothing any human had ever built. "How deep did you say this ocean goes?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. "Our best estimates put it at 60 kilometers deep," Michael replied. "But here's the strange part. When we scan this object, sometimes it appears to be sitting on the ocean floor. Other times, it seems to be floating in the middle of the water column. And occasionally, our instruments insist it's somehow existing at multiple depths simultaneously." Anya pulled up a 3-dimensional model on her computer screen. The image showed a sleek, elongated structure with surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. The ship, if that's what it was, had no visible engines, weapons, or entry points. Its surface was covered in patterns that looked almost like writing, but the symbols seemed to move and change, even as they watched. "I've never seen anything like this," Elena admitted. "Tom, how long would it take to modify our diving equipment for a deep ocean expedition?" Tom scratched his beard thoughtfully. "Give me 6 hours to retrofit the pressure suits and update the submarine systems." "But Elena, if this thing is as strange as our readings suggest, we might be walking into something our equipment can't handle." Elena made her decision. After 3 years of preparation and 18 months of travel, they weren't going to turn back now because their instruments were giving impossible readings. Humanity had always pushed forward into the unknown, even when logic suggested they should retreat. It was what made them human. "We're going down there," she announced. "Whatever this thing is, we need to understand it. Michael, prepare sample. Collection equipment. Anya, I want you to bring every scanning device we have. Tom, make sure our communication equipment can reach the surface for maximum depth." The next 6 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Tom worked tirelessly to modify their deep-sea exploration submarine, updating its pressure systems and installing additional lighting. The submarine, nicknamed Deep Explorer, was humanity's most advanced underwater vessel, capable of withstanding the crushing pressures of Europa's deep ocean. Michael packed biological sampling equipment, hoping to discover if the alien vessel harbored any form of life. His excitement was infectious, and Elena found herself caught up in the possibility that they were about to make first contact with an alien intelligence. Humanity had been searching for signs of extraterrestrial life for over a century, and now they might be on the verge of the greatest discovery in human history. Anya loaded her quantum scanning equipment, devices that could analyze matter at the subatomic level and detect energy patterns that conventional instruments missed. She had developed some of the equipment herself, pushing the boundaries of what was technologically possible. If anyone could understand the physics of what they had found, it would be a NYA dot as they descended through the access shaft that connected the surface station to the ocean below. Elena felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The shaft was a marvel of engineering, a reinforced tunnel that extended through 40 kilometers of ice to reach the liquid ocean beneath. The journey down took 2 hours, and with each kilometer they descended, Elena felt the weight of the ice above them. Pressing down, the submarine bay at the bottom of the shaft was a small air-filled chamber where Deep Explorer waited for them. The submarine was sleek and white, designed to cut through water with minimal resistance. Its hull was reinforced with materials that could withstand pressures that would crush a normal vehicle instantly. "Final systems check," Tom announced as they strapped themselves into the submarine's seats. "All pressure systems green, life support at maximum capacity. Communication with surface station confirmed." Elena activated the external cameras and lights as Tom piloted the submarine away from the bay. The ocean around them was pitch black, illuminated only by their powerful LED arrays. Strange particles drifted past their cameras, and Elena wondered if they were looking at alien microorganisms or just debris from the surface. The descent to Sector 7 took another hour. As they approached the coordinates where their scans had detected the alien vessel, Elena noticed that their instruments were beginning to behave strangely. The depth gauge flickered between different readings. The compass spun slowly in circles. The water temperature sensors showed readings that changed every few seconds. "I'm seeing the same equipment malfunctions we had on the surface," Tom reported. "But they're getting worse the closer we get to the target." Michael was staring at his biological scanners with confusion. "I'm detecting life signs," he said slowly. "But they're not like anything in our databases. The readings suggest organisms that exist partially in our dimension and partially in others I can't identify." Anya's quantum scanners were producing data that made no sense according to known physics. "Elena, I'm reading energy patterns that suggest reality itself is unstable in this area. It's like the normal rules of space and time don't apply here." Elena leaned forward in her seat as their lights illuminated something massive rising from the ocean floor ahead of them. The alien vessel was even more impressive in person than their scans had suggested. Its surface was perfectly smooth and black, but as their lights played across it, colors seemed to flow beneath the surface like oil on water. "My God," Michael whispered. It's beautiful. The ship stretched away beyond the reach of their lights, a testament to engineering capabilities far beyond human understanding. Its hull showed no signs of damage or age, despite the fact that it must have been resting on Europa's ocean floor for thousands or millions of years. As they drew closer, Elena noticed that the symbols on the ship's surface were definitely moving. They flowed and changed like living things, creating patterns that almost looked like language. But whenever she tried to focus on a specific symbol, it seemed to shift and become something else. "Tom, take us around the perimeter," Elena ordered. "I want to map as much of this thing as possible." As they circled the alien vessel, Elena began to understand just how massive it really was. The ship was at least 3 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide. Its design was unlike anything humans had ever conceived, with curves that seemed to bend in directions that shouldn't exist. "Elena," Anya said, her voice tight with concern, "my instruments are detecting an opening in the hull about 200 meters ahead. But here's the problem. The opening only exists when we're looking directly at it. When I scan it indirectly, there's nothing there." Elena peered through the submarine's front window and saw what Anya was talking about. There was definitely an opening in the ship's hull, large enough for their submarine to enter. But when she looked away and then back again, the opening seemed to be in a slightly different location. "That's impossible," Tom muttered. "Either there's an opening or there isn't." "Everything about this ship is impossible," Michael pointed out. "But it's here anyway." Elena made another decision that would define the rest of their mission. "We're going inside," she announced. "Whatever this thing is, we need to understand it. And the only way to do that is to explore it directly." Tom piloted the submarine toward the opening in the alien hull. As they approached, Elena felt a strange tingling sensation, as if the air itself was charged with electricity. The opening grew larger as they drew near, or perhaps their perception of its size was changing. It was impossible to tell which. The moment their submarine crossed the threshold into the alien vessel, Elena knew they had entered a realm where human understanding would be tested to its limits. The space inside the ship was wrong in ways that hurt to think about. Their lights illuminated corridors that stretched in directions that shouldn't exist. Walls curved upward and downward simultaneously. Distance seemed negotiable rather than fixed. "According to my instruments, we're inside a space that's larger than the ship we entered," Tom reported, his voice strained with confusion. "That's not possible." "None of this is possible," Anya said, staring at her quantum scanners. "But we're here anyway." Elena realized that they had crossed a threshold into something beyond human experience. Whatever intelligence had built this ship operated according to principles that transcended normal physics. But they were here now, and humanity's greatest strength had always been its refusal to retreat in the face of the impossible. Where reason dies, the interior of the alien vessel defied every law of physics Elena had ever learned. As Tom piloted their submarine through corridors that twisted in directions that had no names, Elena watched her team struggle to comprehend what they were experiencing. The walls around them pulsed with soft light that seemed to respond to their thoughts rather than their presence. When Michael focused on his biological scanners, the walls glowed green. When Anya concentrated on her quantum equations, they shifted to blue. "Elena, my navigation systems have completely failed," Tom announced, his voice tight with frustration. "According to my instruments, we've been traveling in a straight line for 10 minutes. But I can see we've made at least 6 turns, and somehow we're also moving upward while going deeper into the ship." Michael was staring at his biological readings with wonder and terror. "I'm detecting life everywhere," he whispered. "But it's not life as we understand it. These organisms exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They're aware of us, Elena. I can feel them watching." Anya had given up trying to make sense of her quantum scanners and was now scribbling equations on A tablet with growing desperation. The mathematics break down completely in here, she said. I'm measuring spaces that exist in 7 dimensions, while simultaneously being 2-dimensional. Time flows backward in some sections, while accelerating in others. Elena felt a growing sense of disorientation, but she forced herself to remain calm. Throughout human history, explorers had faced the unknown and impossible. From the first humans who sailed beyond sight of land to the astronauts who first traveled to the moon, humanity's strength had always been its ability to adapt and overcome challenges that seemed insurmountable. As they traveled deeper into the ship, Elena began to notice that her team members were experiencing different realities. When she looked at Tom, he appeared to be piloting the submarine through a corridor filled with crystalline structures. But when she followed his gaze, she saw smooth metallic walls covered in flowing symbols. Michael seemed to be examining organic growths that she couldn't see, while Anya was responding to energy readings from equipment that appeared to be in multiple locations at once. We're each seeing something different, Elena realized aloud. The ship is showing each of us what our minds are prepared to accept. That's impossible, Tom said automatically, then caught himself. Sorry, I need to stop saying that. Everything here is impossible. They came to what appeared to be a junction where multiple corridors met. But Elena couldn't determine how many corridors there actually were. Every time she counted, she got a different number. The spaces seemed to shift and multiply based on her attention and expectations. Which way do we go? Michael asked, his voice echoing strangely in the impossible space. Elena looked down each corridor, trying to use her instincts rather than logic to guide their choice. One passage felt somehow more significant than the others, though she couldn't explain why. It seemed to call to something deep in her human consciousness, a part of her mind that existed beyond rational thought. This way, she decided, pointing toward the corridor that felt right. As they traveled down the chosen passage, the ship around them began to change more dramatically. The walls became transparent, revealing spaces that existed beyond the boundaries of the vessel. Elena saw star systems she didn't recognize, galaxies spinning in patterns that followed no physical laws, and creatures of pure energy dancing through dimensions that her mind couldn't fully process. Elena, Anya said, her voice filled with awe, I think I understand what this ship is. It's not just a vessel that travels through space. It exists outside normal space-time entirely. It can move through dimensions we don't even have names for. Michael's biological scanners were detecting life forms that challenged everything humanity knew about biology. These creatures don't have DNA, he reported. They don't have cellular structure as we understand it. They exist as patterns of consciousness that can inhabit multiple realities simultaneously. Tom was struggling to maintain control of their submarine as the environment around them continued to shift. Elena, my controls are responding to my thoughts rather than my physical input. When I think about moving forward, we move forward. When I worry about obstacles, obstacles appear. Elena realized that the ship was responding to human consciousness in ways that transcended physical interaction. The vessel had been waiting, perhaps for millions of years, for minds capable of perceiving beyond the limitations of 3-dimensional reality. But it required more than just intelligence. It required the uniquely human quality of refusing to accept impossibility as final. Suddenly, they emerged into a vast chamber that defied description. The space was simultaneously enormous and intimate, filled with structures that existed in multiple dimensions at once. At the center of the chamber stood something that might have been a control system, or an altar, or a living entity. It pulsed with light that seemed to communicate directly with their minds. It's trying to talk to us, Michael said, his voice filled with wonder. Not with words or symbols, but with concepts that bypass language entirely. Elena felt knowledge flowing into her mind, information about the ship and its creators that came not through her senses, but through direct transmission to her consciousness. The vessel had been built by beings who had transcended physical existence, entities that existed as pure thought and will. They had created the ship as a test, a challenge for younger species to discover whether they possessed the mental flexibility to perceive beyond the boundaries of conventional reality. Many species had found the ship over the eons. Most had fled when their instruments failed and their logic broke down. Others had tried to force understanding through conventional scientific methods and had driven themselves mad in the process. But a few species, those with a rare combination of curiosity, courage, and stubborn refusal to accept defeat, had successfully navigated the ship's impossible spaces. "They're offering us a choice," Elena said, the knowledge flowing through her like water. "We can leave now with our minds intact but unchanged, or we can continue deeper into the ship and discover truths about reality that will fundamentally alter how we perceive existence." Tom looked at his controls, which were now responding to his emotional state rather than physical manipulation. "Elena, I don't think we can navigate back the way we came. The corridors have changed. Our only choice is forward." Anya was frantically scribbling equations that seemed to write themselves on her tablet. "Elena, the mathematics I'm receiving could revolutionize human understanding of physics. But I don't think our minds are designed to contain this knowledge safely." Michael's biological scanners were detecting patterns of life that existed as pure information rather than physical matter. "The life forms in here aren't just alien," he said. "They're life as consciousness without biological constraints. It's beautiful and terrifying." Elena felt the weight of decision settling on her shoulders. As commander, the choice was hers to make. She could order their retreat, accepting that some mysteries were beyond human comprehension. Or she could lead her team forward into a realm where human determination would be tested against the fundamental nature of reality itself. But as she considered their options, Elena realized that the choice had already been made. They were humans, and humans had never turned back from the unknown simply because it was dangerous or impossible. From the first cave dwellers who ventured beyond sight of their fires to the astronauts who had brought them to Europa, humanity's defining characteristic was its refusal to accept limitations as permanent. "We continue forward," Elena announced. "Whatever this ship wants to show us, we're ready to see it." As they traveled deeper into the impossible vessel, Elena felt her team's human determination burning like a beacon in the alien darkness. Ship had tested many species, but it had never encountered minds quite like human minds. Consciousness that could adapt to impossibility while maintaining core identity and purpose. The ship responded to their resolve by revealing its deepest secrets. They saw the birth and death of universes. They witnessed civilizations that existed as pure mathematics. They observed life forms that transcended every boundary between matter and energy, thought and reality. And through it all, Elena's team maintained their essential humanity. Tom continued to pilot their vessel through spaces that existed in multiple dimensions, using intuition and stubbornness where navigation systems failed. Michael cataloged life forms that challenged every definition of biology, driven by scientific curiosity that transcended fear. Anya developed new mathematics to describe realities that existed beyond conventional physics, her human mind refusing to accept that understanding was impossible. Hours later, or perhaps days, they emerged from the alien vessel changed but intact. The ship had tested them with impossibilities and found them worthy. They had seen truths about reality that few minds in the universe had ever comprehended, and they had survived with their sanity and humanity intact. As their submarines surfaced in Europa's dark ocean, Elena looked back at the alien vessel resting on the ocean floor. The ship's lights had dimmed, as if it were returning to dormancy, satisfied that it had found minds capable of perceiving beyond the boundaries of conventional reality. "Control, this is Deep Explorer," Elena said into her radio, her voice steady. "Despite everything they had experienced, we're returning to base with data that will change everything we know about the universe." The response from the surface station crackled with excitement and anticipation, but Elena knew that no amount of explanation could truly convey what they had experienced. They had traveled beyond the boundaries of human understanding and returned with proof that consciousness itself was the key to unlocking the deepest mysteries of existence. As Tom piloted their submarine back toward the surface station, Elena reflected on what they had learned. The universe was far stranger and more wonderful than humanity had ever imagined. There were realities beyond physics, forms of existence beyond biology, and truths that could only be perceived by minds willing to abandon the safety of conventional logic. But most importantly, they had proven once again that human determination could overcome any obstacle, even the breakdown of reason itself. Where other species had failed, humans had succeeded through sheer stubborn refusal to accept impossibility as final. They had faced the unknown and emerged victorious, not through superior technology or intelligence, but through the uniquely human quality of refusing to give up. The alien ship had tested many species over the eons, but it had finally encountered minds that could match its challenges with equal impossibility. Human consciousness, it turned out, was just strange enough to navigate spaces where logic failed and reason died. Elena smiled as Jupiter's great red spot came into view through their submarine's windows. Humanity had once again proven that there were no limits to what they could achieve when they refused to accept defeat. The universe was vast and strange, and filled with wonders beyond imagination, but humans would meet every challenge with determination, curiosity, and the unshakable belief that impossibility was just another problem to be solved.